If you're making some sort of platforming game, having something like this can be kind of nice. A balancing seesaw platform that goes down if you stand on one end so that the other end can go up. You can make your player run up and then make it jump and hopefully have something there to jump onto. I also have a different version of that we'll take a look at in a different video, which is closer to like these weighting scales. But for today, what we're going to do is we're going to look at this seesaw setup where this is not physics-based. I have looked into doing this physics-based, and you can do it with physics, but this is entirely transform-based instead, which I personally prefer. So let's take a look at it. I'm going to start up from scratch in this empty project, and the finished version of that, as always, will be down below in the description for YouTube members and patrons to check out. Supports the channel, you get the projects to work around in, but without any further ado, let's just get to making this thing. We'll make a new blueprint class, just a normal actor will do, BP, balance, I will call it. If we open that up, we'll need to add a handful of different components to this. First and foremost, we're going to add what is just, for me, a cube. For you, this probably would be an actual 3D mesh asset. I don't have one right now, we're just going to stick with a normal cube. And I'm going to manually scale this cube to just be something that is workable for us here. So let's say that we have this being like 18 in the X, 4 in the Y, and then maybe a little bit less, like 0.3 in the Z, just so that we have something to work with. If you just have a nice seesaw type 3D asset, that's what you would use here. We're going to add to that a box collision that's going to have the same dimensions. So we'll just make this at least roughly fit with the same size. And it's going to be ever so slightly sticking out from the top, but not by too much. So it's going to be a little thinner than we have it right now. 7, pretty good. And then just pull it up by a little bit so that it's sticking out from the top ever so slightly. Maybe a little more than this still. And then make sure that it is pretty much covering the entire surface of the walkable area here. If it doesn't quite cover all the edges, that's fine, because you're unlikely to stand on the edge in such a way that you're not overlapping with this collider at all. A rough approximation, if it isn't too rough, is more than good enough. Then we're going to add 3 more components to this, and make sure that those are not tied to this cube necessarily. They can be, but it's a little iffy if they are sometimes. And for those, you can just use normal scene components. A nice little tip here is to instead use billboard components, because they are visible in editor, and it makes it easy to see where they all are. And we're going to make one for the start position, which is all the way on the left here. You can also call it left, I suppose. I'm going to make a duplicate of that for the center, and that's going to just exactly be the center for the X and the Y. Doesn't really matter how high up they are for the Z, we're not going to be really using the Z. We just need these to be reference points for if the player is closer to the left, the middle, or the right. So as you can probably guess, we're going to make one more, and we'll call that the end, or the right, whatever pleases you. It's probably good to have this offset the same amount as the starting location, just in the other direction. So our starting location is at -45 in this case, so we put this one at just full-on normal, positive 45. Those components aren't really going to do anything. The only thing that they're going to do is give us a usable transform in the world to compare our character to. So let's do that. Open up the event graph here. And first off, we want to set whether or not we are currently in a state of it needing to tilt or not. And we're going to do that with actor begin overlap and actor event end overlap, which is this one over here. Personally, I only want this to respond to the player character, not anything else, which makes it a little easier. If you want this to also respond to other characters, you're going to, on every begin and every end overlap, need to keep track of if anything is overlapping with this collision box at the moment. That's doable because you can just get overlapping actors, and on end overlap, if overlapping actors is 0, that means nothing is overlapping with it anymore and everything is fine. But it's going to make all the math a lot more difficult as well, because different things are going to need different weighing, and at that point maybe you're better off just relying on physics instead. We're going to limit this to only responding to the player character working on it. So what we'll do is we'll check if whatever actor we're overlapping with is equal to the get player character, or get player pawn, that works all the same, that's fine. And we're going to do that on both of these events. Because if anything else is overlapping with this, we don't really want to do anything. So let's add 2 branches, which you can do by holding down the B key and just clicking. Automatically adds a branch into there for you. Connect these up. And if this is true on begin overlap, we're going to set a variable, which we'll create here, and we'll call that tilting. We're going to set that by dragging it in and holding on Alt, we get a setting node, to true. And we hook that up to the true of this branch. If we ended overlap just with the player character, we're going to set tilting back to false. We still hook it up to true here because we're checking actor end overlap being equal to the player character, and if it is, then we change the value of our variable here. And this just gets us something that gives us a bool on whether or not we're currently in a tilting state. And that is important because we're going to be checking that in event tick. This thing is just going to constantly be checking, should I be tilting? If so, I'm going to slightly tilt either left or right, and we're going to add in some clamping, and it's going to be fun, it's going to be good stuff. So, first and foremost, importantly, we just drag in our tilting variable. Dragging in with control, you get a getting node. And with more recent versions of Unreal, you can just convert this straight up into a branch. And everything else that we're going to be doing here, we're only going to be doing if tilting is true. If it is false, nothing is happening. Then we get our static mesh, in our case just a cube. And we're going to set the relative rotation on this thing. And the way that we're going to be making this is going to be the difficult part, because this is honestly the only execution nodes that we have. Everything else is just going to be math. So let's get started with it. The new rotation that we're going to give this thing, we get from a make rotator node. And here we need to give in the X, the Y, and the Z, or the roll, pitch, and yaw, that we're going to set this relative rotation to. Luckily, it's going to start off fairly easy. We're going to get another reference here to our cube, and we'll just get the current relative rotation. And we can split that structure pin, and then the X, the roll, can just go straight in to the roll. That's not going to get changed, that's just going to be whatever it is, usually just going to be 0. And the same with the yaw. Whatever we set this thing up as the yaw is going to remain the yaw. The only thing that we need to worry about is changing the pitch, because if we look at the rotation here, the green thing, the Y, or the pitch, is going to be the thing that we want to have rotate up and down. And now that I'm looking at it, I did accidentally put these things as children of our cube. I don't want to do that. Again, it is not necessarily a bad thing, but if they are, as it rotates, you can see that technically the 2 ends are moving more left and more right, which can be okay, can be fine. So how do we get this pitch, is the question. Well, the answer to that is a whole lot of comparing and mathematics. Let's get started with it, shall we? We first get the player character, because what we want to do is we want to get its location. So we get the actor location from this character. And now we need to figure out, is our player's location closer to the left than the center, closer to the center than the left or the right, or closer to the right than the center? And that's going to decide whether or not we're tilting left or right, or if we're very close to the center, not at all. And since we don't care about the Z, only the X and Y here, what we'll first do is we'll convert to a vector 2D. That's only going to use the X and Y components here. It's going to entirely ignore the Z, because frankly, we don't care about that and can only make things more complicated. With that, we get a distance 2D, which gets us the distance between 2 two-dimensional locations. So the other two-dimensional location that we want to get is our starting location. So we just get our starting component, and we get the world location from that, which also we're going to only care about the X and the Y. So let's just copy over this converting node. And now we get the distance in only the X and the Y, ignoring the height information altogether, between where our character is and where our starting component location is. And we'll do that a couple more times. So I'm going to just copy this over 2 more times. Both times it's going to work over our actor location in the top, and then it's going to take our center and our end and use their world locations as well. So the top one here is going to be the distance between the start and the player. The middle one is going to be the distance between the center and the player. And the bottom one here is going to be the end and the player. We'll worry about We'll worry about using this middle one, the distance to the center, in a moment, because that is going to drive how quickly we rotate in whatever direction we're rotating in. The distance to either the left or the right, or the start and the end as we call it here, that is what we use to decide whether or not we're, well, tilting left or we're tilting right, which side is going up and which side is going down. And we can simply just check, hey, which one of these is bigger? So if our starting distance is less than our distance to the end, that means that we're on the left side of our seesaw. If the distance is not less than, that means that we're closer to the right side and we're going to be tilting that way. So this goes into a select float, and with A, this is going to be -1, and with B, this is going to be 1. And that's just going to be a multiplier on whether or not we're going to be tilting left or right. So let's put this into a multiplication node. And what are we going to be multiplying this with, first and foremost? Well, since we're going to be doing this every frame, the very most important thing that we're going to be multiplying with is going to be event-ticks delta seconds before anything else. Then secondly, we're going to multiply this with the rotation speed of our seesaw. And that's going to be a variable. So let's call this rotation speed. And by default, I'm going to set that just to 1. This is more of a scale than the actual speed that we're giving in. But the real speed is going to come from how far we are from the center position here. And we can just plug that in, no questions asked, and this will more or less work. But it will be a little janky. So what we're going to do is do a couple more math operations here to make this just a little bit more sensible. First and foremost, we're going to subtract 200 from this distance. That means that if we are within 200 units of the center, or whatever amount that you like, our distance to the center, this value, is going to be a negative number. If we then just take the maximum between 0 and that number, that essentially clamps it to anything under a value of 0, anything negative, is going to clamp it up to 0. Now we've got a situation where, as long as we're within 200 units of our center, it's going to see our distance as being 0. And as such, it's not going to be moving either left or right. The rough middle, you can make that a little tighter by making this 100, or a little wider, making it 500, is going to be a safe zone where the thing doesn't tilt. And you want that little safe zone because otherwise it feels a little jarring going from tilting in one direction, even if very slowly, to suddenly starting to tilt in the other direction. A little bit of buffer in there makes it feel a lot smoother. This number though is still going to be pretty big to be used as a rotation speed. So then we simply just divide that by something. Personally, I have it dividing by 50. If that is a little too slow, you can divide it by a lower number. If that's still a little too fast, you can divide it by a higher number, whatever you like. This could also be a variable, and we'll call that rotation, well, let's call the rotation speed that we had before, rotation scale. And then this will be our rotation speed. And both of those will be exposed to edit per instance. And that then also goes into our multiplication node. And just like that, we have the seesaw working in either direction. It's using the distance to the left and to the right to decide, hey, should I be tilting one way or the other? And then it's using the distance to the center to decide how fast should I be tilting. On the edges, it's going to be tilting more. Once you get toward the center, it's going to be tilting a little bit. And in a little buffer zone in the center, it's not going to be tilting at all. And that can then go into our pitch. So we take our current pitch and just add to that whatever number is spit out here. That's going to be how much we want to change the rotation, and go into our pitch. This is going to infinitely keep just going down and going down, which is probably not what you want. You probably want to clamp how much this thing is allowed to bend or rotate in either direction. And for that, it's pretty easy. After we add these two things together, we can just very simply clamp float and give these a minimum and maximum rotation that they're allowed to be. So something like -50 to +50, and it's just not allowed to rotate more up or down in either direction now. And that's everything there is to it. We now have our working seesaw. The only real thing that you need to do at this point is maybe just add some comments around here, and hopefully that makes things a little bit more readable and understandable when you come back to this in the future. But we've got our balancing board thing. So if I just pull this into the level now, it's good to test if you didn't mess up the locations and the direction that things are tilting in. So let's see if I jump onto this side, it's going up. So I did mess them up. If that is the case for you, you just need to swap around this select float. Just change this from 1 to -1 and from -1 to 1. Once you've done that, you will see that it should start working the way you'd expect it to. So now it actually tilts down, and when I walk over here, this tilts down. And even if I rotate this 180 degrees around, it will still work the same way, because all that it is doing is setting the relative rotation based on just the distances. It doesn't really care about where actually in the world it is. All that it is doing is comparing distances, and that works no matter the rotation. So even 180 degrees rotated, it doesn't get like weirdly inverted or anything. There we have it. A tilting seesaw platform, just like that. And if you want to help support me make more of this content, you can get the project files for any tutorial that I make on my Patreon or as a YouTube member. To help support the channel, and it gives you access to the project files to learn from and mess around with. And of course, an extra big thank you to my Cave students tier supporters, Oiku and Earl Monteval Erno, and my Cave Digger tier supporters, Glassy Crustaceo, the Josh Mater, Mauricio Farias, Brendan D. Hill, and Chang the Dude.